live stream. I think I need to put headphones on.
And
you are live.
oh, it said watch live now.
Yep.
So apparently we're live. Thank you for joining us, anybody who's out there. And I'm joined today by my longtime friend and colleague, Kevin Hester. And we will be talking about a really terrible subject. And it's called, what do we call it? Is AI... No, Kevin, help me out here. What were we going to call this thing that I forgot to write down?
Maybe is Meta coming for your water?
Yes. Is Meta coming for your water?
Voila.
That's right. Ooh. And so I'm here with Kevin Hester, and we're going to present a few videos along the way. And Kevin, did you want to weigh in here and say something?
I'm intrigued about everything AI. How could you not be? My professional qualifications in analysing AI focus on power consumption issue. As a youth, I did an electrical apprenticeship in Aotearoa, New Zealand, with the government department with the dystopian title of the Ministry of Works. I was a civilian working on Whenuapai and Hobsonville Royal New Zealand Air Force bases. A decade later, I went on to get a high voltage switching and protection certification from the London Electricity Board. That led me to then becoming the electrical engineer at Sun Alliance Computer Centre in Lennox Wood in the south of England. All the billing for the UK, Europe, and Africa was processed in our complex. In 1987, it was the data centre of its time. It also turned out to be a backup computer centre for the British military. I suspect many of these data centers will be entangled on the electrically important detail of having suitable redundancies as backups. All military operations have to have backup redundancies. So I think this is a unique part of all of these data centers. At Lennox Woods, I was responsible for maintaining the hardware of IBM mainframes that were cooled with Anton Liebert chiller units. They literally pump coolant through the mainframes to cool them, all backed up with incredible UPS systems, uninterrupted power supplies. The coolant is then pumped through cooling fans or radiators on the roof for additional cooling before being returned into the cooling cycle. We found out doing our research for the show that in data centers, 80% of the cooling water evaporates. It never occurred to me at the time that evaporation had consequences. Mea culpa. Additionally, as ambient temperatures increase, this free cooling via rooftop cooling fans will become redundant. None of our old engineering specs hold up already. And of course, nuclear plants often have to shut down when cooling water is too hot to operate the plants. So much for nuclear being an option on a broiling planet. According to CloudTech, quote, hyperscale facilities operated by companies like Google demonstrate the true scale of the challenge. Google data centers average 550,000 gallons of water daily. And remember, 80% of that is getting evaporated into the atmosphere. Microsoft Cooling consumed nearly 6.4 million cubic meters of water. In a live science article that I'll include in my blog on the show afterwards, there are 32 different ways that AI can go rogue, scientists say, from hallucinating answers to a complete misalignment with humanity. Quote, new research has created the first comprehensive effort to categorize all the ways AI can go wrong, with many of the behaviors resembling human psychiatric disorders. that's my lead up to the show. I'll hand it back to you now, Guy.
So the machines have won, just as people feared in the 1960s with science fiction novels. That's amazing. So we're going to start here with a couple of short videos. Before we go there, I want to give a quote from Ray Dalio, who made his billions as a hedge fund manager. And he says, and you can find this in The Guardian. That's amazing. And so we're going to start here with a couple of short videos. Before we go there, I want to give a quote from Ray Dalio, who made his billions I was going to give right in front of you. So manager. I think that serves as a nice starting point. Says, after that, and we'll go to find this in The Guardian. That's amazing. That and indicate. So we're going to start here with a couple of the dire nature of the situation that we find ourselves in. You're muted, Kevin.
We have an overlap. Sorry, it's all right now. Sorry, we had two audios going at the same time. Back to you, sir.
Do you want to go to the video?
Yes.
Do you think this research we've been doing for the show could lead to a peer review paper from you on the basis of this being a new feedback loop?
I was actually thinking about that, and I don't know. I'll have to think a little more.
Okay, here we
Or
go.
maybe a lot more. Here we go. Here's the video.
Do you think this research we've been doing for the show could lead to a peer review
You don't
paper from you
understand.
on the
You don't
basis of this
understand.
being a
That-
new feedback loop?
I was actually thinking about that.
So do you seriously
I don't know.
believe that we're heading towards extinction?
You don't understand. You don't understand that this
Do you think
dubious
this,
thought in your
research we've
mind
been doing for
is
the show
like
could lead
painful
to
to
a
me.
peer
So you
review
don't think it's an
understand.
overreaction to
on
say
You
the
don't
that
basis of
we're
understand.
digging our
this
own
being a
graves?
new
No,
feedback
no, no. It's not dramatic enough.
I was actually
We're
thinking about
we're
that.
So do you
burrowing
seriously
into our own
believe
graves.
that we're heading towards extinction?
You don't understand.
I'm
you don't understand that this dubious thought in your mind is like we're dying, man.
So you don't think
the
it's an
seas are
overreaction
going
to
to
say
rise.
that
You think I'm
we're
an
digging our
idiot?
own graves?
Oh, there's an idiot actor going on
it's
about.
not dramatic
This is
enough.
an accredited fact to me. I'm
So do you
burrowing
seriously
into our own
believe
grave. As
that
you're
we're
as
heading
being a
towards
reporter,
extinction?
you don't understand. You don't
kind of
understand. Passion. This you
understand.
dubious failed to grasp thought in your dire situation. We're dying,
We're
man.
talking
You
about
don't
20
understand.
million
Seas are going to
people.
rise.
You
You
think
think
I'm
I'm
an
an
idiot?
idiot?
Oh,
There's an idiot actor going on about. You want children accredited.
You want
children.
So do you
Your children are going to have difficulty living.
As
being a
towards
you
extinction?
understand that? You can't escape it. So if you can't escape it, we humans have got to die, and we've got to fight it now, man.
So do you seriously believe that we're heading towards extinction?
You don't understand. You want children understand. You want children. Dubious. Your children are going to have difficulty your mind is like you understand
So
that?
you don't think it's an overreaction to say that we're digging our own
So if you
graves?
can't, no, we humans have got dramatic enough, and we've got to fight it
We're
into our own grave.
that we're heading towards
You
extinction?
don't understand. You want to understand.
Pauline,
Just stop.
sorry for the tech problems, folks. Apparently, we need to add somebody from Silicon Valley who knows how to do this sort of thing.
We need a 12-year-old on the show to help us.
Exactly.
We've just had two major data centers that were in the planning stages in New Zealand, and they've cancelled them. And one of them was by Google, and you wouldn't believe it. They drained a wetland for the earthworks to create this complex, and then it didn't stack up viable financially, and they've walked away from it. But they killed the wetland first.
Oh, how timely. Susan says, should we pause?
Did she not come back?
She's back.
Okay. You know, you're still live.
Yes, I know.
The audience is like, funny feedback loop.
So let's just continue as if nothing bad has happened. Pauline, can you play that second short video?
I'm gonna try.
And we'll see about feedback.
Let's see. Let's see if I can do that.
Our apologies, folks, for being technologically illiterate.
Oh no, it just goes to show how much we rely on all this technology to function perfectly every time we use it. And then, of course, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, when would that be? Okay, here we go.
Tell me if you can hear.
Can't hear.
No.
Still can't
You
hear.
don't have audio. So you have to mute yours.
So every time you ask an AI chatbot to help you write an email or like fact check a stat or draw a picture of a frog wearing a dress, it drains gallons of water from local reserves, which has slowly started to cause droughts all across the country. Yeah, this is crazy. In the US, the average data center consumes about 2 million liters of water a day. That's equivalent to the consumption of 6,500
So every time you ask an AI chatbot to help
and right
you write
now
an
there are
email or, like,
5,000
fact
data
check a
centers in the
stat
US,
or
which
draw a
means they
picture
use
of a frog
32
wearing a
million
dress,
households
it drains
worth
gallons
of
of
water
water
from
from
local
local
reserves.
I
which
guess
has
data
slowly
centers
started to
need
cause
water
droughts
to
all across
cool
the
down
country.
their
Yeah, this
servers.
is crazy.
It's called
In the US,
evaporative
the average
cooling.
data center
80% of the water
consumes
that they
about
draw
2
is
million
evaporated,
liters of
and then the other
water a
20%
day.
is returned
That's
to
equivalent
wastewater
to the
treatment
consumption of
facilities.
6,000
And not
every
only
time
are
you
you
ask
discovering
an
that
AI
they use
chatbot to
and
help you
right
write
now
an
there are
email or, like,
5,000
fact
data
check
centers
a
in the
stat
US.
or
I think we have to can that. It's not working. It's just going to piss off our listeners. Chris Mangiello, Water Policy Director of the environmental nonprofit Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, discovered that one data center in Georgia was demanding a staggering 9 million gallons of water per day, the equivalent of 30,000 households. And remember, 80% of that 9 million gallons has been evaporated into the atmosphere in a feedback loop. AI's energy hunger is insatiable, and it will collapse the electrical systems.
Hey, Pauline, do we have callers on the line? I heard from one person who's still trying to, is still in the waiting room. Oh, I think he might be okay.
I'll give a little bit more information about Amazon giving up on building its Auckland data center as power prices soar. It's incredible. We're committing to projects that we have no electricity to supply them with. When the contract was let to build the data center in the north of Auckland, the electricity cost, the spot price of electricity was less than $100 a megawatt. And since they approved the project, the spot price has peaked at nearly $900 a megawatt. The price of electricity for the data center went up 900%.
To answer your question, Susan, this is not a question and answer event. So anybody in the waiting room is going to be there indefinitely, or at least until they get hungry.
Okay, thank you.
All the funding for these projects is a complete boondoggle. A deep dive into the high-tech, big tech companies' finances reveal it has been charging New Zealand firms and government agencies hundreds of millions for local storage that it hasn't even built. It's just another boondoggle.
Yes, that's
And
what
always the taxpayers end up picking up the bill. Sorry, go on, go.
no, that's what we're good at, boondoggles. As a species, that's what we do. Okay, because our technology seems to be failing us, or we seem to be failing the technology, I suggest that we wrap this up in short order, and I have a blog post that I will release within 10 minutes of this conversation ending, and it will include all of the links to these topics. So we already attempted 2 of them, and there's also Charles Hugh Smith says that his site has been scraped millions of times by apps.
Guy, your audio is very low. You need to speak up louder or turn your volume up.
So Charles Hugh Smith says that his site has been scraped millions of times by apps, not humans, and that one ChatGPT query uses 1 to 3 bottles of water, which is a lot. So I'll include a link in my blog post at guymcpherson.com. And that starts at the 28-minute mark. The next one is titled, "Why is the Internet Running Out of Electricity?" And there's a short YouTube clip that you can follow for that one. The next one, another short YouTube clip, is AI causing droughts in the US. And I think at this point, there's no question about it. The evidence is clear. And the final video I will include, also another short YouTube clip, is AI slop killing the internet. So for people who are tuning in, if you just go to guymcpherson.com, you can see all these videos that we intended to talk about before technology went awry, or maybe it was us. And so that was to be the topic of conversation today that we're going to terminate shortly. That said, anybody have anything else they want to weigh in with?
I'd just like to point out that with all that scraping of data is, in a way, it's plagiarism or theft. And for artists like musicians, this is a huge issue. The big tech firms are making a fortune out of artists, and artists aren't making a fortune out of art.
Oh, we do have a couple of questions that Pauline has just pointed out to me. Will AI die before or after the nuclear power plant's meltdown? So
The kind of topics we end up with.
Which horrible thing is going to happen first? I have no comment. All of the above. It's a race to the bottom.
But it just shows how many existential threats we face at the same time. Every direction you look, there's another thing coming at us.
Here's another question. Is there a way to crash or melt down the centers as end users? Can we as end users crash these systems that are consuming all this energy? And I can't imagine how. But clearly I'm not Mr. Tech Guy, as evidenced by what we've seen here so far. So any other comments on that?
And one thing's for sure is he couldn't do it legally.
Right. Right, because these data centers, many of them are affiliated with governments or with organizations that seem to have more power than governments, like Meta, for example.
You know, I
We are-
think Professor Garrett, I think, is the one who coined it. Civilization is a heat engine, and I can't imagine that AI is going to do anything to help that situation. It's just doubling down.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's Tim Garrett at the University of Utah, who has had 5 peer-reviewed papers indicating that civilization is a heat engine, no matter how it's powered. So even if we use nuclear, which is a horrible idea for many reasons, or wind turbines or solar power, doesn't matter. Civilization is a heat engine, no matter how it's run.
I always rebel when I hear people talking about clean energy. That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing.
Absolutely.
And these
And-
data centers are just contributing, and they're still being built. They're still being planned.
Yes, well,
And then we punch a hole in the ozone layer every 34 hours when we fire rockets with satellites up there to do the relaying of the data.
right. So many things we want to accomplish that show signs of our progress as societies, and virtually all of them are contributing to the circling of the drain.
I watched SpaceX launch a rocket a few days ago, and the primary rocket engine, they used the term, it dropped into a part of the Indian Ocean that was empty. This is the disrespect and disregard that they play for the ecosystem that they found somewhere that was empty.
Right. Well, I would argue that most people, and particularly people living in the global north, are uninterested in almost anything except progress. Whatever gets in the way of progress is viewed as somehow a horrible thing. But progress almost always comes at a cost from an environmental standpoint. Another question, any update on Arctic and now newly found Antarctic ice melting? And there has been a tremendous increase in the rapidity of ice melting in Antarctica. And so here again, I think what we have is a race. But that said, climate scientists have been, and scientists in general have been saying since the mid-1970s that the Arctic is the planetary air conditioner. So I think that's of primary concern. However, what's happening in Antarctica with the rapid melting there is just another indicator that we're not doing everything quite right. Comments, please?
And there'll be a domino effect about as that sea ice melts, the species that live on it and under it, all of their habitats going away as well. It's not just the ice. It's an enormous amount of habitat.
Right. Yes, there are consequences for living organisms. Okay, next question. Are you guys, and I would like to point out that there's only one guy, that's me. There's a Kevin. Anyway, are you guys in the Bill Reese camp? That is to say that the humans are simply incapable of solving this complex predicament we brought upon ourselves?
Absolutely, I am. Although Bill doesn't seem to grasp how critical the situation is. He doesn't have anything like the urgency that we have. But there's a great quote from him where he said that the politically possible is, no, the scientifically necessary is politically impossible, and the politically possible is scientifically irrelevant. End quote.
That's a good line. And I think that we were capable of amazing things. I mean, a long time ago, as an organization, as a collective body of humans, we put a person on the moon when people thought that was virtually impossible. And the things we've done to study and understand deep space and the deepest of our oceans are pretty incredible. So we obviously are capable of doing amazing things. I think that a long time ago, like more than 5,000 years ago, we gave up the chase for knowledge in exchange for a few dollars more. And when we did that, and individually we bought into the idea that it's all about the money, and that was the disaster that has led to this point. That said, that argues, and I think this is right, that those of us living in a way that most of us would consider normal are not to blame for the disaster brought to us by more than 8 billion people. Not as individuals. We can't hold ourselves responsible for that sort of thing. That's my take anyway.
Another byproduct that we have happening now of, as a result probably of us reaching peak oil, is we're just about to see a new war break out where the United States is going to go in and steal Venezuela's oil. This is going to be a saga that will go on until the lights go out. The fighting over the last habitat, the last oil, the last of everything.
Right. Yes, because oil is at the basis of industrial civilization. It requires oil to dig up cobalt, for example, to run the wind turbines, to run the photovoltaic solar systems, to mine the coal. All of that depends upon oil converted into diesel or gasoline.
I remember Elon Musk saying that we will coup anyone we want after America did a coup in Central America for oil.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that seems to be what we do, at least in this country. Next question. How severe is the threat from microbe mass extinction? Last I heard of the kind was the Great Oxygenation Event, which was rather extreme with respect to permanent planetary dynamics changes. Well, microbes matter. I mean, they do a lot for us, like so many other of what we consider small and insignificant organisms. There's a lot going on out there, and it seems to me that we are taking little or none of it into account with our societal actions. Again, it seems to me that progress for the sake of progress is what we do.
Yeah, this whole machine's just got its own momentum and is rolling down the cliff.
Right. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like progress. It just feels like panic.
Will rising SSTs cause meltdown of old nuclear reactors?
I don't get that. I think a major driver of sea surface temperatures at the moment is the less marine aerosols, as per Leon Simons, who publishes with Dr. James E. Hansen. That's their field.
Right, I think that's exactly the case. And then the second part of the question is old nuclear reactors causing massive depopulation. If we get to the point of massive depopulation, all life on Earth goes shortly after that because of the loss of aerosol masking. So this is something that people continue to not understand or to misunderstand, that reducing the human population is not necessarily a good thing at this point. It would have been a great idea before aerosol masking came into play, which, by the way, there's evidence of for going back to ancient Rome. So aerosol masking has been an important thing for a very long time, and we can't ignore it. Most people seem to think we can.
Dr. James E. Hansen referred to it as our Faustian bargain. It's just such a brilliant descriptor.
Yep. Okay, next question. Starts with, might be off topic, but what recommendations do you have for philosophy to read to cope? I'm having trouble not feeling like a hysterical freak when I try to speak to all my family and friends. Oh, your family and friends still speak to you? Well, that's something. Congratulations. Well, it is difficult feeling that you have some grasp of the dire nature of the situation. In terms of philosophy, I would refer you back to the ancients, which is where contemporary philosophy came from. I mean, there are a few changes and a few steps along the way, but the ancient Greeks pretty much had this figured out a couple thousand years ago, and there has been some good work since then. Six Questions of Socrates is a book that I could recommend. I don't recall the author offhand right now, but that's a good introduction to the nexus of ancient philosophy and contemporary philosophy, because he goes back and points out that Socrates spent his entire life basically asking 6 questions in various forms, and that under his work underlays most of what contemporary philosophers are doing. Somebody asks, "Hi, Guy. I hate it when you start it like that. Do you think solar radiation management is inevitable, and which country do you think will take the lead?" You could argue that the United States already took the lead because of funding for projects at Harvard, for example. But there's not been a lot of published research, and that I'm familiar with anyway, and none that points us in the direction that we're going to solve anything. So I think if people actually figure out that we're in a dire situation and that something needs to be done, no matter what we have to throw at this predicament out of desperation, that of course things will be done. Of course, at the 11th hour, or maybe the 12th hour is where we're at now. And billionaires will, I think, somehow rally together and try to do something. I just don't know what that something is, because this is truly a predicament. I don't see any way out of it. But we can encourage people to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels, but if that goes too far, then we're back to loss of aerosol masking. It's a mess. I don't know how to fix this mess. If I did, I would have fixed it a long time ago, or at least brought it up.
I think it's inevitable that it will be done, and we have an uncanny knack of making things worse all the time. When it comes to cloud seeding, we could end up having wars over it, because if you seed the cloud in one place and you take the moisture out of the atmosphere, downstream, someone will be affected. It's like putting a dam up and controlling a river when millions of people in the country next door live off that water.
Right.
It'll just be insanity. More and more insane things every day.
So on the positive side, we get to be here. We get to see the insanity at the end of the movie.
and we get to still take a walk on the wild side. And that's what I try to do, and I try to encourage other people to do. Don't just spend your day doom scrolling.
Oh no.
And, you know, obviously this is a privileged position that we have as well. Most of the people in the world don't have the luxury of having these debates, let alone living them.
Right. There's so many people in the world that don't have a roof over their head, that don't have the ability to feed themselves every day, that don't have clean water. And thanks to our collective actions, it looks like that clean water thing is going to go away for all of us in the not too distant future. But lots of us have those things, especially those of us in the global north, or the equivalent of the global north, the people in Australia and New Zealand. So appreciate it. Express some gratitude, if only to yourself. And as Kevin indicated, take a walk in nature. I'm
You
fortunate.
made a video a few years ago about how nature nurtures, and that was based on a peer-reviewed paper. It's a really brilliant article you wrote.
And so I try not only for my personal health to take a walk every day, to take a long walk, but also because the municipal water supply for this community is right up a hill, about a third of a mile up the hill. And it is straight up. So that's good exercise. And then every other walk, I go the other way, which is downhill and pretty flat the whole way there and back. But it allows me to walk to New Hampshire, so I get to say that I'm walking to a different state, physical state, not mental state. So I encourage everybody who has that opportunity to get out there and see the world while we can, even if the world is your own backyard, much less in the next state.
One of the benefits for me of learning how dire everything is that I pay more attention to nature, and I appreciate it more and better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's it? Kevin has a Substack.
Somebody says, Kevin, do you have a Substack?
Yes, I do.
And it's in your name, so it isn't
It
that
is,
difficult to find.
And if anyone goes to Guy's Substack, I'm almost always commenting there so they can find me.
Right. Commenting and promoting my work onto other people and adding to it. So if you can find my Substack, you can find Kevin's Substack.
We're a team, like it or not.
All right, and that's all the questions I see coming in. Pauline, is that the grade you're giving us?
Yeah. What's that?
Is that the grade you're giving us?
The grade?
You have a comment here, and all it says is B.
Yeah, no idea.
The machines have won again.
That changed.
Oh, that's right.
Because we don't really have a very concrete ideas of what's causing the insect apocalypse.
Oh. Okay, somebody says we don't really have a very concrete idea of what's causing the insect apocalypse. And maybe, I don't know. I tend to think that we do, because it goes right along with killing everything else. And those are organisms at the smaller organisms are at the lower part of the food chain. So I think it's pretty easy to understand that they are being impacted first before the big things that eat them and depend upon them for pollination and so on.
We're in the process of sterilizing the planet.
You make it sound like a good thing when you say it that way.
Don't you start misunderstanding me like everyone else.
As soon as we get it sterilized, we can start really getting. All right. I think the questions have stopped at this point. Oh. Pauline says there's more questions coming, so we'll just wait.
No, I think we can wrap it.
Oh, here we go.
There's a question about are the recent earthquakes in Asia a cause of climate change? They can be linked. There's a term called isostatic rebound. When land-based ice melts, or when we drain aquifers, or when we drain oil fields, it all takes the pressure off the tectonic plate, so they can shuffle around a lot more easy.
Right. And so we have these plates that are mostly on land, they're mostly terrestrial, and then adjacent plates are marine. And so we have the Pacific Ocean, for example. It's called the Ring of Fire around the Pacific Ocean for a reason. And that is because of all the volcanic activity. And that's because of shifts as we melt a bunch of glacier ice and take it off of the terrestrial plates. Those become lighter. There's more water in the oceans. And this nexus is well known in some places, like the San Andreas Fault, for example, in Southern California. That is right at the intersection of terrestrial and oceanic systems. And so, yes, they can be related. If we're looking for control, I'm not sure that's the place to go. Oh, somebody asks, how long do we have? Everybody's favorite question. I would say until the day after tomorrow, but Kevin is in New Zealand, so it's already the day after tomorrow there. So I don't want to scare Kevin by saying the day after tomorrow.
I also think it's diversionary thinking about it. It takes you out of living in the moment, worrying about the future. I think it's really important to make the most of the moment.
Yes, I think we can say quite confidently that our time is short. Even if we live for what is considered a long time as humans, that's not a long time. I remember when I was on this speaking tour in Western Europe, the world's oldest person had just turned 117 years old. And at her 117th birthday party, she was asked to think about, to ponder, what do you have to say about those first 117 years of your life? And she said, it seemed rather short. Well, I can promise that almost nobody watching or listening is going to make it to 117. And also, it will seem rather short.
In the chat, Sea Lion Defense Brigade asks, who's going to get the water, data centers or wildlife and humanity? And I think that's a rhetorical question. I think we know exactly who will get the water.
Yes. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Will some primitive cultures, like Amish, for example, be the survivors? Well, not for long, because again, we lose all this industrial activity, we lose aerosol masking. We superheat the planet within a few days. Again, according to James E. Hansen, within a few days, we lose the once we lose the aerosols, within a few days, the planet heats up catastrophically beyond anything we've experienced so far as a species. And then someone says, who's going to get the water? Data centers or wildlife and humanity? I think we know the answer to that one, don't we? It's the same old song. It's right and it's wrong. Sorry, that was Willie Nelson's song. I just slipped in the two for a second there. Is it worth saving for retirement if you're under 50? Ha ha. Well, I like that some people are in stage 6 of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, that being gallows humor. It's always worth living well.
They're all valid questions about how to deal with that future when it's so uncertain. It's a real really big issue for me. I'd like to be generous than I am, but complicated.
Right. Well, we all know that we're going to die, right? We figured that out when we were 12 years old or so, that we too are mortal. It's not just everybody else. It's us as individuals. And so how do we live? How do we live unknowing and understanding that our lives are short? I mean, that's the question I've been asking for a long time, since I came across the idea that our lives are going to be short. And for me, at least, what better indication of us as human beings than how we act at the end, knowing that it's the end? Knowing that our lives are short, knowing that the lives of everybody around us are short. How do we act? And
have a think about the intergenerational part of this discussion. When you're our age, I can be really philosophical about it. I've had a great life. I'm surprised I'm still here. But think how crippling this is for our kids. Knowing that this is all going to unravel on their watch, and they're never going to have the lives that their parents and all their ancestors had. This is a really big issue for me. I'm worried about the grief in our kids.
Right, absolutely. And I try to tell people, I try to encourage them. This is not a get out of jail free card. Just because you recently discovered that your life is going to be shorter than you expected, that you are only going to live until you're in your teens or 20s or 30s, that for me is just another reason to live well.
Of course. Nadia in the chat says, quote, at Nature Bats Last, I run into a lot of peak oil people who deny climate change and say it's a cover up for the resource. It's cover for the resource depletion story. This is exactly what we will see. There's so many different ways to muddy the water of this debate and create confusion and dissent. So I just take that as a granted.
And there's so many ways we, as a collective, as a species, are racing to the bottom. It's easy to pick a new subject. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with these monthly conversations, is pick a subject and spend a little time on it. But of course, they all overlap. So now people are asking questions about peak oil that has consequences in terms of our ability to survive, right? The aerosol masking effect comes into play here. The Faustian dilemma of James E. Hansen.
Perhaps starting a genocide in Palestine is a way to distract people from climate breakdown. That certainly distracted me.
Somebody asked the question, Kevin, have you written about this grief for younger generations?
I have indeed. I will drop it in the chat in a second. Just bear with me.
And you can find all your work at kevinhester.live, right?
Correct. Thanks.
All right. Have the questions slowed or terminated? That's not a question.
Okay, I've dropped into the chat my article, and the title of it is The Coming Tsunami of Grief.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm copying it and sharing it.
Okay. Pauline is copying and sharing.
Well, there's a lot of people in the chat thanking you, Guy, and to a large extent, your work is thankless. So to everyone who's thanked Guy and me for what we do, I appreciate it.
Yes, me too. So thank you for the thanks, everybody.
Thank you both again for continuing to talk about this subject. It's rare. These are conversations that I should be finding all over the internet that are, just hard to find, this kind of just real honesty and just forthright conversation. Thank you again, Kevin and Guy.
Thank you. And thanks, Pauline, for keeping the show running when the rest of us
Absolutely.
are completely clueless. So
Absolutely. Thanks, Pauline.
Thanks everybody for joining in, and we'll see you in a month or so.
I'll approach Shane. Sorry about the technical difficulties, folks, but if you wade through it, I think there's still some important information. And when Guy posts on Substack, I'll add all the articles I referenced when I was speaking. So everything will be findable.